Hello everyone, and welcome to our presentation. Our research team acknowledges the original custodians of the different Indigenous and locally focused nations where we are all located across the world. Elders and traditional custodians hold memories, traditions, cultures, and hopes for the world. Today we pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging of the lands where the research team are located. That is, the Whadjuk and Wardandi Noongar countries in the Australian southwest, the Yawuru and Yagana nations in the northwest, and the Larrakia nation in the north. I'm Sandra Wooltorton. In our paper, we considered a linked crises of climate, species loss, and injustice. Many people say these crises are due to the ways English language operates, and therefore the ways we think. For instance, many things are seen to be separate when really they are deeply connected. This results in disciplines being taught separately and learners not learning the relationships that link concepts. Our concern today in this presentation is with two of the three curriculum priorities: sustainability and Indigenous studies. In our paper, we show that putting Indigenous histories, concepts, and wisdom in the centre of sustainability education will show communicative ways of understanding worlds with many applications in teaching and learning and improved practical outcomes. First, I will explain the concept of continuing colonisation just so that this presentation makes sense. In simple terms, this is about power in society. It is decision makers having power over particular groups, such as Indigenous people, making decisions that determine Indigenous lives. For example, mining on Aboriginal land without free, prior, and informed consent is colonisation. Thank you.
I'm Peter White. We have three cross-curriculum priorities in Australia: Asia and Australia's engagement with Asia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures, and sustainability. This paper addresses interactions with the last two cross-curriculum priorities across the learning areas and general capabilities. Thank you.
Kaya, my name's Len Collard. The issue of decolonising methodologies is a global response by the people who have been colonised by the West. Australia, New Zealand, and other nation states fall under this domain. Me and my colleagues, we often talk about what have the Aborigines got to say about colonisation. And so we say, what do the Aborigines have to say around the world to respond back to the notions of colonisation? So our intents and purposes are always to recolonise our own space, have our own voices and our own messages, our own worldviews to respond back to the colonising world. Methodologies is the way that we go about this. What we try to do is to think about how the ancient knowledge systems within our cultures operate and how we can manipulate and caress and develop the ways that we can respond back. Methods may include the ancient ideas of narrative, the ancient ideas of shared gathering, the ancient idea of respect and good manners. Hence, it can be in conflict, as it should be, with Western paradigms of colonising discourse. Looking forward to talking more to Indigenous cultures around the world about what are the challenges we have in recolonising our space and creating the methods to express that back to the West. The East talks to the West, and I guess our Aboriginal Australians, are we in the West or are we in the East? Maybe there's another discourse. And what has the Southern Kadajin Budi got to say about this? Or what have the Southern knowledge and systems got to say? Thank you.
Hello, I'm John Gunther, and I'd like to tell you something about the research project for renewing tertiary education for remote tertiary Indigenous student engagement and success. Universities in Australia find it hard to attract and keep students in courses they offer people who live in remote communities, in particular for those who are Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders. In this study, we asked students what they thought helped them in their studies. Many of the students we interviewed talked about cultural security, that is, the importance of feeling and being safe in their learning spaces and in their learning itself. They also felt that their strengths weren't acknowledged, and universities often didn't understand their cultures, histories, and knowledge systems. They had to fit into the university's ways of knowing, not the other way around. So we found that there are opportunities for universities to listen to and respond appropriately to the people and the country they live on. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Poelina, and I want to introduce you to a very beautiful human being, Edwin Mulligan.
It is good to talk for country, not talk to country, not talk for country, but talk to country. It is good for your mental state, where you meditate with your thought of mind, and it's good for the exercise within your mind to exercise that. Like I was saying, we can speak to the earth, we can speak to the bird, bees, and the grass and the trees. Knowing when we leave that place, we know that they're listening. Our ancestors used to do that long before European came here, and our elders today, they still want us, they're teaching us that. They want us to embrace that story. Knowing that when you speak in language, like for an example, if I were to say, Yangan Jalajul Munin, Valaman Mara, meaning are you balanced within the conscience, within yourself? Or other ways of saying it, are your mind and heart, spirit and soul aligned with the earth that which you walk on? Knowing that when we walk on this earth, the earth can actually feel our presence. See? It's a different mind. You know? He would say, I'm actually speaking to the earth. And with that vibration, I feel that there's a transmission that is bouncing off from the earth, wanting me to understand that they can feel my presence. That's how we speak. English speak different way.
I'm Sandra again. I'd like to tell you a bit about the case study Mindy Blaise wrote about, as she can't be here today. It's called Multi-Species Assemblages, Decentering the Human. Mindy ran a project called Walking with River in the Swan River in Perth, Western Australia. It involved researchers, educators, and a small group of preschool children walking with river to generate climate change pedagogies that put relationships in the centre rather than individual children's needs. They developed a responsive walking methodology to shift teaching about the world, which is common in sustainability education, towards learning to become with the world in which they are enmeshed. So the difference is about learning about towards learning as part of, towards learning in relationship with the world. After months of walking with the river and experimenting with practices informed by Indigenous knowledge systems, their perspective shifted. They began noticing how the river was making connections and relationships. Their project centred Indigenous knowledge systems that recognise worlds as holistic, interdependent, connected, have agency, and entangled. The knowledge systems influenced how they were practicing deep listening, dialoguing, and re-situating themselves with river worlds. Rather than just thinking about river, they were walking with, thinking with, and becoming with river. Thank you.
Again, I'm Poelina, and I want to share with you a regenerative governance for cultural wellbeing. So I'm the chair of the Marawarra Fitzroy River Council, and it's a very interesting phenomenon because what we have is we've got Indigenous elders from right across the catchment who've come together to look at bottom-up governance rather than top-down toxic governance. one of the things they were very, very concerned about is when you start to look at Western models of governance, what you see is a centralisation of power, and it becomes toxic. So one of the things with regenerative governance for cultural wellbeing is to look at what we call bottom-up governance, people who sit on the ground, who hold culture, who hold knowledge, who hold this wisdom in their heart, and they want to share it. Most importantly, they're looking at how do you transition from eldership to the younger leaders. So we're very, very much focused on building the cultural capital and the humanity and the kindness of our young leaders to be able to reach out and aspire to their full potential. So from that perspective, what we're talking is bottom up rather than top down. We look at the land as giving us the laws from nature, of how it taught us to self-regulate our behaviour, ethics, values, code of conduct, how we are civilised towards each other. So from that perspective, it's a very exciting model. It's grounded in the wisdom of the land and our relationship with it. Our dreams for the future, which includes all people, because we see ourselves as global citizens. So from that perspective, we use the first law stories to guide us, to use the objectivity of animals to teach us how to be good and decent human beings. So it's a very beautiful model, and we want to share it with the world. And we're saying that it's time to wake up the snake, we call it, wake up the consciousness to bring the people with us so that humanity and the planet can have a chance. Thank you.
I'm Peter White again. I'd like to bring this all together and tell you about regenerative learning in higher education. In this paper, through several case studies, we showed that putting Indigenous histories, concepts and wisdom into the centre of sustainability education will reveal deeper meanings and communicative ways of understanding worlds. These have many applications in teaching and learning, and improved outcomes in practice. Each case study presented in this paper uses a decolonising regenerative research method for answering research questions. The methods challenge Western colonising power relationships that continue to act upon Indigenous communities and experience. The methods enable communicative relations with more than human worlds, and they are transformative. Together, this regenerative style of sustainability education values experience, the collective, being creative, narrative, justice, ways of knowing, and responding in communicative ways to sentient, animate places. In this paper, Decolonising Ways of Working Towards Regenerative Futures foreground Indigenous and locally adopted ways of knowing, being, valuing, and doing, revealing new but ancient knowledge, making for contemporary contexts. We show that focusing on relationships, linking things, enables people to learn, to think, to see their worlds anew. We need to understand ourselves in relationship with places and things, rather than learning about places and things. This thinking with, rather than thinking as separate, will enable restoration, revitalization, and regeneration of people with places, not separate from places and more than human beings. Thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to chatting with you in the future.